Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Happy Tuesday. Another episode of Landis Performance tricks and tips and stuff. So this is going to be, I guess, part 3 of the Carburetor series. I was able to get a Quadrajet from a buddy Doug and was able to rebuild it all. See, Wrench is in, Rick's in, Chuck's there, Dave's in. Hey man, how you guys all doing? So, we've been making progress, getting some stuff done here in the shop. I got the LS engine in, Scott's Vega, with help from Chuck and Dave. They helped me get the motor mount, the one motor mount I had to paint and get installed, and we got that all set up and everything. So, and then I've got a rebuild video similar to the Holly video I did last week. I've got a Quadrajet rebuild video this week. So we'll go ahead and I guess just go ahead and dive into all this. So let me bring up some pictures here. So here's a bunch of pictures on Scott's Vega, kind of bring you up to where we're at with that project. We're leaving in basically 3 weeks, so I got to get this thing done. So, but anyway, here's where I'm at right now. Well, actually, I might have shown a few of these pictures last week, but I got the Terminator X Max installed. Scott wanted on the firewall because there was a big blank spot over there. Used our 3D keychain printed firewall grommets for the wiring to go through. Got the steering rack all situated there. And then, like I said, we got the engine in. So the engine's an LS3 525 horse Cruise Connect engine. Scott purchased used, but it looks like it's in really good shape. I had to change the oil pan for the car, and we're going to change the valve covers. Scott wants to put the stock covers with the coils and then the Corvette LS3 covers over top of it. But there it is. We got the master cylinder and the clutch slave cylinder all hooked up. Kind of an overview there with the engine bay all painted up and everything. Working out to be a pretty nice installation so far. There's the passenger side. Let me rotate this picture. So this is the passenger side header. I didn't mean to do that. There. So the passenger side header and the hooker manifolds, these are the S10 swaps. Yeah, it is a tight fit, Rick. But good clearance around everything. Scott wanted to use manifolds, and I agreed that would probably be the best bet in these hooker slash Holly LS swap headers. Are very close. They're not a header, don't get me wrong, but the way they're designed, the main tube here gets larger as it goes back, so as each cylinder dumps in, the ID of the manifold gets bigger. So they flow really well. And this motor made 525 horse from GM with stock manifolds on it, so it'll still do the same thing with these. And there's the motor mount that I selected. My buddy Scott is a pretty sensitive person, and he really dislikes vibrations and stuff like that. So I decided to use the C5 oil-filled motor mounts because they're super absorbent and they don't transmit a lot of vibration through the chassis. And being this is a unibody car, we definitely didn't want to do that. So The top mounts are All-Star LS stock car mounts. I use the same ones on my NASCAR, so I was kind of familiar with them already. I don't know why I got that picture in there. There's the driver's side. You can, let me bring it close up. So there's the mount. It goes down inside of the block, and then we just use these Corvette mounts there. I think it's going to work out really good. We'll see. They should be very absorbent, and it should be giving some good clearance there. And there's our clearance around our steering shaft. Why I had the steering shaft shaped that way. It looks tighter here than it actually is in real life. It has probably at least 1/4 of an inch in there. So, but you know, very good fitment. I'm very happy with the way everything's coming out so far. There's our master cylinder with my support firewall stiffener bracket that I made last week with the slave cylinder bolted in. So that should work out real well. We talked about this last week. Instead of making all new brake lines, I reused the lines that were in the car. I just put heat shrink on them and shrunk them down so they have a rubber coating on them. I think it makes them look a little cleaner. And that way I saved some time. I didn't have to make all new lines. I usually make them out of stainless. Scott's not a big fan of shiny, blingy stuff in the engine bay, so this just worked out much better. There's the Griffin radiator that was in the small block. We have room. We were going to try to put a mechanical fan on the front of the engine. I do not think it's gonna be viable with this intake manifold. If we went with a carburetor style manifold, we probably could have done something with that with a Edelbrock stock car water pump, but with using the stock LS3 intake with the drive-by-wire, I just don't see how that's going to work. So we're going to have to go with something electric. I'll talk to Scott tomorrow. I want to maybe do a pulse width modulated. The Holly Terminator can run that. So I think that'd be a good choice for this build. And there's the underside. We have the Speedway steel bell housing. It works really good in the Vega because it's very tight to the flywheel, and it's a flat plate that goes to the bell housing, so the bolts are short, so you can get them in and out because the flywheel, the tunnel is very tight to the bell housing. This car originally had a cast aluminum GM bell housing in there, and it was nearly impossible to get the bell housing out of it. In fact, somebody before me had beat the firewall in pretty good, and still 2 of the bolts you had to take out with a wrench, 1/8 of a turn at a time. So with this setup, you can use a swivel socket and run them right in with an impact gun. Makes it real easy. So I do have to put the clutch in. I'm waiting on the clutch, but it's a brand new TKX transmission, and it's mounted in the stock location with the stock mount, so his dry shaft works. The shifter goes through the hole in the floor, the same spot, and that's what gave me the alignment position for the engine. They're kind of hard to see because everything's dark, but this is the square plate that is part of the All-Star motor mount. So it's got a flat plate. It comes up, bends over at nearly a 45-degree angle, and then gives you 2 locations to tie the mounts to the chassis. There's the driver's side, a little bit better view on that side, and obviously you can see the steering going through. And the whole reason for this whole motor mount deal was just an overkill front subframe and rack and pinion. So I've seen on the Vega or H-body threads on Facebook a lot of people talking about this rack and why, how it's going to fit in with a street car engine. And Justin says plain that this was a drag race setup. And reason being is this plate right here, where the 2 primary color plates and then the black plate steering shaft goes across, that is the stock GM mounting location for the engine. So that's what started this whole thing, is to get the steering rack in, which Scott had already bought. We had to eliminate the stock mounts, and we were going to do engine plates because the setup is made for drag racing. However, I knew that the vibration would have drove Scott crazy, and so I decided to see if I could come up with a better mousetrap, and this is kind of what I came up with. So that's the back side of the mount going around with the steering shaft going across it. Got the slides a little bit out of place. Here's the driver's side header coming out. Perfect location, 45 down and a 45 back, and then it's going to go right out the back. Plenty of room for your oil filter and stuff. With the small block in, you couldn't change the oil filter without taking the exhaust off. So this is going to be nice and clean. As you can see, this flange is just about at the back of the bell housing, so it clears the engine completely. And there's the driver's side, even though the camera focused on the bell housing, but that's, again, perfect spot. The starter will go in and out without any problems, and no heat to the starter, so that's going to work out real well. Here's the front half of that motor mount. So I made a plate that goes to the stock chassis, and then stepped it, and then made this platform for the Corvette oil cushion. So, and then we put gussets in there so it won't flex or bend or anything. It's all 3/16 steel, so I think it's going to be a very solid mount for the engine. There's the a front view. Use the F-body Camaro Firebird oil pan, fit in there great. That's a blurry picture. Here's a better picture. This is the passenger side, and basically the same thing. You can kind of see the stock All-Star plate on the block. It goes up and lands on top of there. Bushing goes down. It's got studs top and bottom. And then this is the plate that I built that holds the Corvette mount, but yet bolts back into the stock chassis. So the other thing I thought about with this is I have not altered the chassis at all in the car. All the factory mounting points are still there. If there was to be an engine change down the road, everything should just be able to bolt in. There was no welding or cutting or anything done to the factory chassis. There's a little better picture of the oil pan, and you can see that the rack actually sits lower than the oil pan or the bell housing, so really good placement for the engine. And that's just another view of the steering shaft. This black plate is where the factory motor mount would normally sit. And obviously you can see the steering shaft is going right over top of it. So that was in no way going to work the way it was. So I think we came up with a good way of doing it and not getting too crazy. So I think that's the last. Yeah, that's the last picture there. So I think that worked out really well, and we'll keep moving forward on there. I got the wiring harnesses in the car. Most of the stuff is plugged in. I got the clutch coming forward. I got the flywheel, but I need the clutch, and I've got alternator brackets so I can start putting the alternator on. And I'll talk with Scott in the next day or two about finalizing which water pump we're going to use, and then what electric fan we're going to use. But we will discuss that tomorrow, and then I can keep moving forward on this thing. I'd like to have the car, try to have it running beginning of next week. So that's kind of the update on the Vega project. So with that, let's get into part 3 of our carburetor tech talks. Let me open this up.
All right, so today we'll
Stop. Okay. So the first 2 weeks ago, we talked about carburetors, kind of went over how they work, different the 3 different main brands that you use, or 3 designs, being the Holley style 4150, 4160, Rochester Quadrajet, and then the Carter /Weber /Edelbrock AFB style carburetor and thermoquad. So those are your three common carbureted setups for muscle cars, hot rods, dailies, work trucks, whatever you want. So last week we went ahead and went over doing the Holley carburetor, and I did a 4150, even though it was a race version with no choke. Basically gave you all the tricks and tips that I have that I normally use for setting one of them up to run your car. So see, John's in. Hey John, how you doing? So today I went ahead or actually I started yesterday, finished today, this Quadrajet. Basically, after going off the list number on it, it seems to be like a 7980 Chevy pickup truck carburetor, probably with a turbo 400 behind it, because it doesn't have the provision for a kick-down cable. So, but nevertheless, it's still a Rochester Quadrajet or Quadrajet or Quadrabog or whatever name you want to put on it. So let me go ahead and start running this again. If there's something that you see and you want to mention, or you want to ask questions about during the video, throw it in the comment, or throw it in the chat, and I'll try to answer it. If it's something we need to stop the video, I have no problems with that. So just sit back and watch me go through this carburetor rebuild. And like I said, if you have any questions or comments or anything, throw it in the chat and we'll go over it. So with that, here we go. Chevrolet 350. First thing you want to do when you see one of these carburetors and you want to get a rebuild kit, you have to look down here, and it's kind of hard to see, but there is a serial number stamped in there, or a part number. This one's 17080512. That is the number you need to get a carburetor kit for it. So you have your fuel inlet, PCV. You got a couple different vacuum. This is intake vacuum for the choke pull off. That pulls the choke off when it's shut. So when it starts up, it opens it up like that. You got your ported vacuum right there for your vacuum advance. You've got manifold vacuum down here. Now, since this carburetor was in the late 70s, early 80s, the mixture screws were blocked off. So what GM did was they put caps over these. You'd take a punch and you'd punch it out. They give you two little marks to show you where to go between, and you take a punch and you knock that solid disc out of there, and then you can adjust this little double D there. This carburetor actually has a vacuum vacuum idle actuator. So when a vacuum was applied to this, it would rev up the accelerate the throttle. It's just a air vent. If you have this choke here is not electric, it's actually got an exhaust gas port, so it pulls air in here. This tube would go down to the exhaust manifold and then back up and into here, and that's what would heat the coil up to get the choke to release. And this is another pull off for secondaries or for the choke. Both of these are choke. This one also will lock the secondary so they cannot open when this one's opened. So basic Quadrajet. The whole thing with the Quadrajet is small primaries, big secondaries. As you get to about 3/4 throttle, secondaries open up. So that's why this is a very good fuel mileage carburetor. GM produced these. The smallest ones I think are around 650 CFM, and they go all the way up to 780 CFM. So there have been many GM muscle cars that had these carburetors on it. They're a good carburetor. The only problem with them is tunability. A little bit harder to get parts for them and stuff like that, to change jets and needles and seats and stuff like that. But we're going to go ahead and rip into this, and I'll show you a bunch of tricks on rebuilding them and how to do it. So we're gonna go ahead and start out now. All right, so the first thing we want to do is take off these accessories. So this got some Torx bits in here, so we'll take this piece off. We have this pull-off back here actually has two different bolts. It's got a Phillips and a Torx, and this one's got a choke pull-off's got a straight blade screw. So we're going to take these all off, and then work on the choke. And once we get to that part, I'll come back in and we'll have just the carburetor to deal with. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and I'll get back to you guys once I get it all apart. Alright, so we got the pull-offs all done. Now we're going to take the choke off. So it's got a screwdriver slot down inside here. Just a single screw, it's all holds it on. Now a lot of things, this one has already been modified. A lot of times these chokes are riveted on. So you go ahead and take a drill and drill the heads of the rivets off and push the pieces out. The new rebuild kit will come with self-tapping screws. This one's actually been modified, and somebody used some construction screws or something. So you just operate the choke a little bit to get this piece off, and then you can get this off. Here's your choke piece. Got a little plastic tube here that pulls vacuum through. We'll replace that when we're in there. There's a little arm right here. Well, there's this piece that came from the choke. It goes into that piece right there, and that would be for the choke pull-off. So we had to take this off to get that out of the way. Now there's also this little piece here. You got to take notice how that goes. So what that does is that locks the secondaries from opening when the choke is closed. When the choke is open, the choke lever will open it up, and then that allows the choke to the secondaries to open. So you want to make sure you put that in the right orientation. Okay, so now that we've got that all done, now what we're going to do is we're going to take the screws out. So you can take a roll pin punch and push this roll pin that holds the accelerator arm on, and then you've got these screws here, two up there, those out wide, and there's also two down in here by your squirters. So we'll take all those screws out, and that'll take the lid off, and then that'll expose the inner workings of the carburetor. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. So take your small punch, couple taps, and that's all it takes. Now you can take this lever and get it out of your way. You can always tell by the witness mark which hole it went into for putting it back together. And when you assemble the carburetor, you can take a pair of side cutters or a small screwdriver and just push that roll pin back through. So it's very easy. You don't need to take it out, so you don't need to worry about losing it or anything like that. So now we'll go ahead and take these screws out, and then we'll get the lid off. All right, got a little ahead of myself. There's two other screws that I didn't take out yet. So first, we want to take this choke screw out here. That gets this linkage out of the way. And you got to, once you take this off the shaft, you carefully pull this up, and this is the piece that goes down and catches the choke. So when you're putting it back together, you're going to sink that down, push the choke in, twist it until the double D matches the choke, and then it engages. So that's for the choke rod. And the secondary is the metering rods for the secondaries. Got this little tiny screw up here. Little tiny screw right there. And then you got this piece here. That's the needles for the secondary enrichment. And this little piece just sits on this cam. I'll show you this in a minute. Now, there's only three different length screws in the top half of this carburetor. So you've got these two countersink screws. They go down here near the boosters. The two very back ones are extra long, and all the other ones take the same. The rest of them take the same screw. So on the Quadrajet, these two screws, bolts, 5/16 bolts that mount to your intake manifold, that pulls the front half of the bowl down. These two screws back here go all the way down to the base plate and seal the back of it, because it's got a regular flange back there. So now that we have all this off, we should be able to pop this right off. I don't know how long it's been. There it goes. Since this has ran. So the next thing you want to look for on these carburetors is there's 4 tubes here. And these are fuel pickups to bring the fuel atomizing, like the emulsion tubes. And these are for the secondary. A lot of times these will fall out, so you always want to make sure you have 4 of them in there. The other thing is, right here, there's a little cam. Let me get a screwdriver so I can point. There's a little cam right here, and this arm rides on it. This is what holds your secondary metering rods, and you can see as it opens, it lifts up. So you want to make sure. I've seen where this is the only piece of plastic, and I've seen that broken. And so if you don't see this bar rising as the throttle blade opens, then you've got an issue there. Other than that, this part is pretty much done. We'll get into it more when we're done, but there is a screw here and a set screw right there, and there's a spring in here. This screw here winds up the spring, and you can adjust this tension, and that is your secondary adjustment. You can tighten this up and make the secondaries come in slower. You can loosen it up to where it just flops and they'll come out instantaneous. I always try to make them as soft as I can. Car will have a flat spot, and you snug it up until the flat spot goes away, and that's the perfect setting for that. Other than that, we're done with this part of the carburetor. So now we can take this gasket off. Now this gasket is really dried out. Okay, and since this gasket's so dry, it didn't come apart, but let's see if we can get this out of here. Okay, well, we ripped the gasket. So we want to save the gaskets as much as you can, because there's 2 main differences in the Quadrajets. So there's 2 different there's a couple different different carburetor top gaskets. There's one body that's straight across with 1 screw on the outside, and there's one that's got this shape. So that's like an early and a late. And then you have these little cutouts for the boosters. There's one that's got a short one and one that's got a long one. So you just want to double check your gaskets with the new gaskets, because the box is going to come with a multiple ones, and I'll show you which ones you need to have. So always hold on to your old gaskets as much as you can. So you have your pump jet. It's got a spring on this side that holds the rod, and it's got a spring in here that has it return. Now, just like in the Hollies, to make the pump jet work, it's got to have check balls. So this one's in the bottom here. Once we get this all cleaned up, we'll be able to take a look at that. It had some water in this carburetor. Then this piece here, kind of hard. You got to kind of set these needles so they go down into the main jet. You got to find them. Okay, so once you get them in, you'll see that it goes up and down. And there's a little plastic piece here that holds this in place. This one's kind of worn, but this is your primary mixture control. There's a vacuum port underneath this. This piston seals up in the bore, and the vacuum pulls it down. When the engine vacuum goes away, it goes up and richens it up. There's also a stop screw in here, so you can play with the stop screw here. And there's another one in here. There's a little plug right there, and you can raise and lower where this goes to control your mid-range fueling. So we'll go ahead and pull this out now. And there's your needle and seat. And there's a little plastic bushing. It's supposed to lock it in, but this one's kind of beat up. Hopefully it'll come with one in the kit. All right, so with that primary needle assembly, now you can see there's a block filler here, and then we have our float. We have the spring that holds the primary needles in. Now, like I was saying earlier, every accelerator pump needs a check ball. There's a screw here. So this screw here is where that's the check ball. underneath there for the accelerator pump, it draws the fuel in from the top, so it doesn't need a check ball in reverse. Only needs it going forward. With our main jets, our seat for the needle for fuel inlet, we have our bleeds and stuff here. So that's, we have to take this piece out and this piece. Don't adjust this unless you want to tune the primary needles, which you'll need an AFR meter and stuff like that. So just leave it alone. The calibration should be really good. So we're going to take these two pieces out, and then we're going to flip it over and take our base plate off, and then I'll show you some more stuff on that. So it's only, since the back lid screws go all the way through to here, there's only 3 screws that hold the rest of it, because the main carburetor bolts kind of hold the whole block together. And then we have double D's in here for our mixture screws. We'll take those out. So let me go ahead and take that stuff out, and we'll go over some more stuff. Alright, so we took the screws out, the base plate, those 3 screws. You take it off, and here's some, this carburetor has one of the older style repairs done to it. Go ahead and take this gasket off here. That's your base plate gasket. And you can see here, there's a piece of foam. This was one of the original fixes for these carburetors. It doesn't work very well. So one of the common problems with Rochester Quadrajets is they have to, it's a zinc casting, and they get the passages in for the main jets. They have to put these passages in, and they put lead plugs in there, and these plugs will leak. So what I do after I've soaked it and cleaned it, everything, take a hammer and lightly tap these in good, and then we'll JB weld all this over, and that usually works very well for fixing that issue. The only other issue that these carburetors have is, again, this is zinc, and it's a really fine thread on that fuel bowl. So sometimes back in the day, guys would try to change the fuel filter without taking the carburetor off, and depending on the vacuum hose, you know, the 70s and 80s cars had tons of vacuum hoses and a hard steel fuel line. Sometimes people would get this crossed, and if it's crossed, it's pretty messed up. Dorman Helpline used to make a replacement one that had like self-tapping threads. I don't know if they're still available anymore. So if it's stripped, you'll have to check out what kind of repair you can do that before you go any farther, because you may not be able to get anything for it. So now that we got this all apart, we're going to go ahead and put it in the acid, and when we're done, I'm going to show you how to check your pull-offs, and we'll go over the reassembly and some other tuning tricks I'll show you for making these things perform even better than they originally were. So we're going to go ahead and stick it in the acid now, and then when we pull it out of the acid, we'll pick up where we left off. In the acid it goes. Cover it up because this stuff stinks. Alright, so we'll let that sit in there for a couple hours, and then we'll put it back together. Alright, so once you get the carburetor out of the acid and wash it down really good with water, and you gotta blow dry it, get all the water out of it. But also you want to check your passages to make sure that they're working properly. So take the main body, try to get it dried a little bit, and then we'll go through the circuits and blow them out. make sure that you get blow all your air bleeds and your accelerator pump circuit. Make sure they're all clear. Your main jet and the secondaries and where the emulsion tubes go in. Just gotta clean that all up. This thing was really rusty inside, so we went ahead and let this one sit overnight. Got most of the rust out of it, so I think it's gonna be fine. But that's what you want to do. So you gotta do that with all your components. Dry them all off. Once I get all this dried off, then we'll get ready to start the assembly process. So now that we got everything cleaned up, I wanted to go over a couple things. Here on the body, behind your throttle blade, is the part number of the carburetor body. So 17080512. You need to know that number to get the right kit. So now we have our kit, and just like in the Holley stuff, they give you a picture breakdown of the entire carburetor, so kind of show you where everything went. You got bolt tightening sequences, and then of course it's got all kinds of measurements for different setup for your choke float height, how to get your idle mixture screws out, accelerator pump, choke lever, choke angle. So all these different things, your pull off settings and stuff, even your secondary throttle lockout adjustment, so that you can make sure that all works properly when you're all done. So we're going to go ahead and start putting this thing back together. Like I said originally, one of the big issues with these is these lead plugs, so we're going to knock these in with a hammer, mix up some JB weld, and dry them all in. And then we'll start with the base plate, and I'll show you some stuff on there. So I'm gonna go ahead and do these, and I'll show you when I get them all covered up. Alright, so now I've knocked them in to make sure they're nice and snug, and now we'll mix up some JB weld and cover it all up. Okay, so we have our JB weld all mixed up, and we're going to go ahead and seal everything up. Alright, so now that we got that done, we can put the base plate, base gasket on, and we can let that cure a little bit. So in these kits you get a lot of things. There's your accelerator pump and a little tool to help you stretch it on, your needle and seat. Some gaskets, you got a gasket for your fuel filter. You got the vacuum piece there. You got a couple other seals for the accelerator pump and stuff like that. So we get all those stuff to use. Now here they give you the 2 gaskets. For this kit, they actually gave us the basically the same gasket, except for you can see there's a difference here, and this carburetor doesn't need that. So we take our old gasket, and you can see that it didn't have that piece hanging out, so this is the right gasket for the top. We can set this one aside. Only one base gasket for this style carburetor, so we're going to stick that on now. You got 2 dowel pins here. You got to kind of stretch it over the dowel pins a little bit. Like that. That way you can just kind of make sure that you don't have any JB weld that's going to affect the positioning of that. So now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at our base plate. And here's the workings of the secondary. So you can see we have all this travel here, then there's a stop here, and that's what activates. So green stop here, it's what activates the secondaries. And you can see here, our secondaries aren't quite opening, and our primaries are going just a little bit past. So this is the adjustment for there, so we're going to make a tweak to that. So we take a pair of pliers, we're going to tweak this lever a little bit. Now, the primaries stop dead at halfway point, so we're good there. Now, what we want to do is we want to get the secondaries to open all the way. So this little adjustment here is where that is that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to give that a little bit of a stretch here. And there you go. Now we got the secondaries are opening all the way. Now if you wanted the secondaries to open earlier, you can bend this little lever right here, the little green piece. Now you can see the secondaries open just a little bit quicker. Probably even go just a skosh more. And now it's about 3/4 throttle, and then the secondaries open up. So that's how we want that piece to work. So now we have the base plate is basically all set up. We're good to go there. So we can go ahead and, I like to stick it on just in case the JB weld is a little bit too tall, and this will allow it to pull all the way down. So we're going to carefully try not to disturb the JB as we stick it on. There. All right, then we'll put the base screws in and then let that dry. At this point, we can go ahead and put our needle and seats, or our idling mixture screws. Screw them all the way in. Easier to have a little extension on there. So you screw them all the way until they snug up. Okay, and you want to, unlike the Holly where it's one turn, you want to do 2 turns on these to come out. So there's 1 turn, 2 turns. So that's the proper starting spot for that needle and idle mixture needle. So again, all the way in snug and 2 turns. Okay, so that's done. So now we're going to go ahead and let this thing set up for about a half hour to get all the JB weld dry, because now we're going to have to flip it over to build the rest of the carburetor. So we'll give it 30 minutes and we'll come back. Alright, so we let it sit for a while. The JB weld is cured, and now we can go ahead and start putting the rest of the carburetor back together. So one of the first things we want to do is right down here. Right down here is where the check ball goes for the accelerator pump, and our needle and seat. The seat screws into there. We want to put those two in first. We'll do that. So in the little package, it comes with all new balls and clips and seals. Okay, so we just drop that down in there like that, followed by the screw that holds it in. And in the kit, it gives you a new needle and seat, so we're going to use that. It has a little gasket in the seat. I drop that in there. Now for that, you need to use a really wide blade screwdriver so you can get into the grooves. Lock that down. Okay. Put your spring in the spring return in the accelerator pump slot, and then we're going to rebuild the accelerator pump. Now in the instructions, they give you a little instruction kit how to use the plastic cone to get the piece on. So what we're going to do now is first we want to pull the spring out of here, because this uses a cup style accelerator pump, so it uses a spring to keep the shape of it, and then it's got a rubber diaphragm. You got to just kind of stretch over these. There's a little plastic, sometimes they have 4, this one has 2, so you just got to kind of stretch it over, get it off of there like that. Then we go to our kit. It gives you a new spring, a new piston, and the installation tool. So that goes on. You can see that kind of lines up everything. Take your seal, work it down, and take your spring and just flip up the lip like that. Now that's ready to go. So the zinc makes a little bit of powder in there, so I put a little silicone paste on there to kind of let it lubricate it. Once the gas is in there, to wash it all out. You can kind of feel the air coming out every time you pump it, so we're good to go there. Alright, so we can set that aside because it's going to want to fall. So the next thing we need to do is put our float inside. So here's our float, and kind of like the Holly unit, it's a solid plastic foamish type material. You got your pivot screw, and then you have your needle, and they actually have a little clip on there. I don't know if you can see that, but that's to keep the float attached, the needle attached to the float. So the new kit comes with that same deal. They give you the needle and then the little spring. See, it's a little bit of a pain, but it'll go. It just clips on there. Okay, so I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little hairpin type clip there. You just got to get this in, snap it in place like that, and that goes up to one of these holes on the float, and that way the float, the needle is hanging on the float now. So now we're going to stick this in here. Stick the needle down inside the seat. There's a little rod there that holds that. So now we have our float installed, and then you just lightly bring it up and set the height. So we go to our instruction sheet. This is the data sheet that we have for setting up everything. So we look for our carb number. All right, so there's our carburetor number. It's a 1980 Chevrolet GMC truck 350-400 engine. And for this carburetor, they want 15-30 seconds for our float height. Now, the way they want you to measure the float height is you lightly push down on the needle and use a measuring device at the end of the float. In the kit, they give you this little handy dandy measuring device. So we want 15-30 seconds. And we're right about there. It's actually a little high. So we're going to take it back out. Or you can just bend it a little bit in here. Okay. See where we're at now. That looks pretty good there. So now our needle, our float height is set up, and so we're pretty good there. The next thing I like to do is I like to get the choke piece in here because it's a little tricky to get in, and with the gasket on there you can't see in there. So first of all, in this body right here, it takes a seal. So in the kit they give you these little seals, lip out, and that just sits in that groove, and that just keeps any dirty air from being sucked into the carburetor, because the air horn is going to be sealed to the air filter. There, that's all seated. So now we're going to take our choke linkage. So this is the piece that goes to the carburetor at the top. We're going to take that piece off. This is the piece that goes to the choke, and you see it's got a double D on there. So what we're going to do is we're going to carefully push it down in there and then insert the choke to line that up. Now on the choke they've got a pointer on there, so it kind of helps you. Once you get it on, then you can twist it to make the double D line up, and then it goes right on. There's also a vacuum port that goes on there, so you can stick that in. It actually goes the other way, like that. And one other thing is we have this rod is going to come in from back here. You know, before, and then we'll stick this together. Before we do that though, I forgot, we need to do our secondary lockout. So this is our secondary lockout, and that prevents the secondary from opening when the choke is closed. So we got that on in place. Alright, so now I'm going to slide this down in there. Rotate it till it catches the shape of the D. And now you see it's connected because it's moving it up and down. Now we can just put the screw in and tighten it down. Alright, so our linkage fell down, so we can just stick that in there now. That'll go, you can just fish it in the back, just connect it, and it's connected. So now we have our choke rod connected, so now we can go ahead and start finishing this up. So the next thing is the float top. This kind of holds the float pivot from moving around. And we're going to take our spring that holds our needle, or pushes our needle in our mixture needles up, and we're going to stick this into that sleeve, and you got to kind of fish around to get the needles into the main jet. And what these needles do is this is what controls, let me pull this out. You can see up close, the needle has steps in it. So these go into your main jet, and as the vacuum changes, it goes through different size orifices and allows the curve of the fuel mixture. So that way, that's how it creates fueling for during the whole engine running and load process. So works out real well. This is one of the things that makes these carburetors a little bit more unfriendly for adjusting, because you have to find these different needles for different calibrations. Kind of can be a little troublesome. Alright, so we gotta put this piece in. We just gotta kind of move the needles around. There they go. So now they're inside the jets. You can tell by it bottoms out now. So there's normally a piece of plastic right there that holds it in, but this one's not so good. We have everything in. Now we're ready to put our gasket on. We'll go ahead and reinstall our accelerator pump. In the gasket, there's a little cutout right here. That's to wrap around the needles there. So kind of tuck that down under. Get all the way under there. There we go. That allows us to slide that right over. And we have to get this choke rod in also. Okay, and you just get it to fully seat. There's two dowels on the back side. Seat the dowels. The gasket's over the dowel pins. And now we're ready to put the lid on. Alright, so now we got our lid, and we're going to adjust our secondary plate. This actually takes quite a bit of load to push down, so the engine has to suck that open. So you have a 3/32 Allen under here. That's the pinch. Then in here you got a screw blade, and there's a spring in there, and that winds the spring. So clockwise tightens the spring even more, counterclockwise loosens it up. So we're going to loosen up these secondaries to let them come in a little quicker. So we're going to hold the screw. We don't want it to unwind. We want to be able to measure it. Take our 30 seconds, give it about a quarter of a turn. We're going to let's go half a turn counterclockwise out. Tighten the set screw back up. And that's a lot easier now. That's probably pretty good there, but you can do this on the car too. And you can just, if the secondaries are coming in late, then you can just turn the 3/32, clockwise tightens, counterclockwise loosens the pressure, and that tells you how fast the throttle is the secondaries are gonna open up. So that's pretty good there. Here in the lid, there's a place for a gasket. We're going to put a new one in there. That is for the accelerator pump rod. It's going to be a green one. We're going to go lip up because we want to keep dirt out. And there's a little silver washer that holds that in. Okay. Now, if you wanted to adjust this metering system here, there's a stop here. You knock that plug out, and then you can go in there and adjust that stop screw, and that'll raise and lower the needles for your primary side, and you can adjust your mixture there. So with that, we're pretty much done. We're ready to put this together. We want to feed the choke through this hole, choke rod through this hole. These metering rods have to go down in here for the secondaries, and the accelerator pump has to work its way up to there. So we just kind of line that up. Put our choke rod through here. Get our pump, accelerator pump in place. Accelerator pump works. Choke rod's up. We're good. What I like to do is inside the throttle body here and the front barrels, you have your countersink screws. I like to put them in first. Remember, you're only screwing in the zinc, so you don't want to get out the big guns and tighten it, over tighten this. This is a soft material, but it's very easy to cast, and that's why they make carburetors out of them. Just kind of snug them down good, and then just put the rest of the screws. Now on this, you have two long ones. They go back here. They go all the way down to the base plate. Now we'll put the rest of our screws in. Some of these will have a deflector shield that goes in behind the choke area. And that's just to keep fuel from getting drawn from one side to the other. So we'll tighten all those up. So we have to put our choke plate on, and the step has to go out. And you put your screw in. Now if we just slightly open the throttle up, you can function the choke like that, or like here. And that tells you it's done. When you'll see if the throttle is closed, it won't close. It's because there's a fast idle cam. And to adjust your fast idle speed, you got this screw right there. That's what adjusts your fast idle speed. So with the choke all the way closed, if you want to raise the idle, you turn that screw. Once it goes off, then it goes back to the stop screw on the opposite side. So now we have that done. We want to put the rest of our screws in, and we'll go to the accelerator pump and finish this thing up. Put the screws back in place. Now start tightening these down. Okay, now that we have all of our screws tightened down, we didn't recheck our 1 and 2. See, just a little bit. Okay, so next thing we want to do is put our secondary needles in. So just like on the primary, these go into the main jet for the secondaries, and that taper affects how the fueling, rich and lean, for as it's running. So you just kind of stick them down in there. You got to kind of feel the where the hole goes. There is one little tiny screw. Where did it go? It goes in there. Snug that down. It's a little tiny one, so you don't have to kill it. Okay, next we'll do our accelerator pump. So here's our accelerator pump linkage and our cam, and you can see that it was in the number 2 hole, so we're going to go ahead and put it back in the number 2 hole. And what you want to do is, so you look in here and aim up the hole. Take your side cutter, just kind of grab the pin, wiggle it around so you find the hole, and then just push it through. I like using this better than a screwdriver, because if you put too much leverage on the choke horn, it will bend it, because it's only zinc. So just use a screwdriver down here where the material is thicker. And now we have our pump jet. You can hear, I don't know if you can hear this, you hear that little bit of air. That's the pump pumping air. So you know if it pumps air, it's going to pump fuel. There is a accelerator pump height. Go back to our instructions. Uses the inner hole, and they want 9/32 on the pump jet, on the pump here. So get our sheet where they showed us to adjust it. So they want you to measure from the stem here, and we're a little high. This would be 9/32. This is a little high here, so now what we're going to do is right here, it's designed to be bent. See if we can get in there and bend that. Okay. And now we're to spec. So now we get the accelerator pumps working. That's all done. Basically the carburetor is done except for the pull-offs. So all these pull-offs are going to help open the choke. So you want to make sure that they all work. You can put a vacuum on them. If you don't have a handheld vacuum pump, you can just suck on it. Then I stick my pull a vacuum on it and stick your tongue over the hole, and it will hold. If it slowly slows out, this diaphragm's got a rip in it. You got to replace it. So that front one is good. Let's try the secondary one. So that one's good. So now we can put those on. So we're going to have to fish this rod through again. This likes to fall out. But now that we have this all done, it won't come out again. Put the rod up in your linkage. And put the screws back in. So on these pull-offs, you can just follow your the instructions and the measurements they give you, and that'll get you right where you need to be. You will need to use a vacuum pump, or I guess you could use a vacuum hose and do it that way, but once you get the choke completely assembled, then you can do that. So we got the secondary one in. Now we're going to put our primary one on, and this one actually has a rod that goes back and holds the secondaries closed, the lid on the top, until it gets till the choke opens up. Keep it from opening prematurely. One good thing about these carburetors is if you want a carburetor that is on your hot rod or your daily, that will always start no matter what the temperature is outside, gets decent fuel mileage, and gives you performance, this is a really good carburetor. One of the downfalls of the Holley carburetors, in my opinion, is the choke assembly doesn't work or adjust as easily as this does. But you can see, because this is an OEM carburetor, they've spent a lot of money in designing all the pull-offs and everything to make the choke function properly. So now that we have those both on, the next step we want to do is we're going to put our choke coil in. Now there's going to have to be a gasket here because there's vacuum going through there. Now your choke has got this clock spring, and that clock spring is going to move by temperature. So the way this works is hot exhaust temperature goes in this hole, which is being sucked through the carburetor, and that's how you get your opening, how it opens and closes. So you put the tab down, the gasket in place, and then you slowly wind it up, holding the choke open, holding the throttle blade partially open, and you just where it wants to close, right there. And that should be a really good spot. And actually this one wants to be a little bit farther. There's a little detent right here, and that typically is where the choke arm goes in. Now this one, like I said, had been modified, and this kit did not come with the screws. I was surprised at that. So we're gonna have to reuse the ones that they had in there already. Okay, so now that that's done, I'm gonna go get my vacuum pump, and we're gonna go ahead and set these per the instructions. So I'll be right back. All right, so now we're gonna adjust our choke. We're gonna go back to our spec sheet, and for the 350 engine, wants 37 degrees. So this is an angle finder. So we're gonna set the angle finder at 37 degrees. I'm gonna hook up a vacuum hose to our pull off. And we're still not quite there, so we got to give it a little bit more. And now the bubble is showing 0, so now we know it's set at 37. We take the vacuum away, and now it's back to 0 again. So we know that side's working. It's all adjusted properly. On the secondary one, that pulls out even farther. So for this one, the instruction says, so it's got too much, so we're gonna have to straighten that out a little bit. You just come in here, twist the rod a little bit. Now we went too far the other way, so we're going to give it a little bit more here. There we go, and now we're level, so that's good. So now our pull-offs are all set properly. And you don't have to use this. You can just go ahead and start the vehicle, and if it's blubbering, just come in here and crack the throttle open a little bit more, force this a little bit. If it runs better, then just adjust the screw to it till it does that. So the only other valve that this one has on it, it also has this speed up one. Now on this original vehicle, it would have a vacuum port on there that would make it want to raise idle. So when you pull vacuum on it, it sticks out and raises the idle up. That would be good for like a DXL lever where you want the throttle, the engine to catch the carburetor to catch the throttle as you're deaccelerating, so it doesn't stall when you come to a stop. Or it could be also used as an AC clutch deal, where that when you pull the AC on, the load of the clutch and the AC compressor puts a load on the engine, and it makes it change its idle value. You could use a diaphragm like this to fix that. Now they also make electrical, and some have electric on them that do the same thing, where you can just apply electric to it, and that'll raise the idle. A little. And if we put a vacuum to it, you can see it just raised the throttle linkage. So it's a fixed adjustment. Now, a little trick that I used to do when we raced drag racing in a foot brake class, we'd use one of these, electric one, so that when the toggle switch, we'd put a toggle switch for launch, and when you mashed the brake, the electric solenoid would automatically raise the throttle up to a set point. So my buddy had a Corvette, and we set the with the converter was a 2800 stall, so we set this so that every time he staged the car, mashed the brake, the solenoid would activate and put the motor at 2200 RPM, exactly the same every time. So all he had to do then is, when the tree came down, swap feet, release the brake, and mash the gas, and his starting line procedure was exactly the same every time. Made the car very, very consistent. So a lot of things you can do, a lot of little tricks you can do with a carburetor to make it do stuff like that. Obviously, you can do the same thing with a fuel injection motor. You can do the same type deal with it. So we're going to go ahead and put the vacuum plugs back on this. We're almost wrapped up with this thing. A couple extra plugs here. And So the kit also comes with a base gasket and an air horn gasket. And it actually came with a new roll pin if you had to put a new roll pin in, but we didn't. My way, you don't have to take it out and ruin it. So the only other thing that would be left is there is this big clear nylon gasket that goes on the fuel inlet bowl. Your spring goes in. Again, I don't have a filter in stock, but a filter goes in here and then it screws together. And that gets that all set up for you, good to go. And put our vacuum hose back on for our choke pull off. And this carburetor's done. So hope you guys found some interesting information here. If you have to rebuild your Quadrajet, you got to jump on it, and everything should be pretty good from there out. If you have any questions, put them in the comments, and I'll give you an answer as quick as I can. See ya. All right, so hopefully that was informative. Been a while since I rebuilt a Quadrajet, probably 8-9 years, but it all came back. But they're really good carburetors. Wrench says, comment on deleting the paper filter for inline. Yeah, you can do that. Just take the spring out and it will work fine if you want to do an inline. The paper filters in these are actually really good, especially if you use the wicks. And you'll see on the wicks and some of the other brands, they'll have a rubber seal on the front of it with a little ball and a spring, and it actually has a anti-drain back, so that once the fuel goes in, and back in the day, hard metal line all the way down to the mechanical fuel pump, you'd get vapor lock, and it would start trying to boil the fuel. So that little check ball kept the carburetor full if the steel line got hot and started trying to boil the fuel out of it. So they work really well, but inline filters are fine too, whichever way you want to go. So you guys that came in late, at the beginning of the video, we did an update on the LS swap Vega. If you've got one interest in that, you can go back and check that out. And I haven't found a AFB carburetor yet to do a rebuild, so if we don't, this may wrap up the carburetor system, and then we'll come up with something else for next week. But I appreciate everybody coming in, viewing. Had a good turnout tonight. Really appreciate it. Went a little over time, so hopefully it doesn't screw anybody up. But mash the like button, share the video with friends. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. It's free. There's no junk mail, nothing. It just helps the algorithm. The more subscribers you have and the more watchers, the algorithm sends this video out. We'll send these as premieres to other people that may not know about the channel. So all that stuff helps out. I really appreciate everybody watching, and we'll pick it up next week. I'm still trying to get some more videos out. I got a bunch that need to be edited and stuff, but we'll get that stuff going. Meantime, we'll just stay with the live shows, and I appreciate everybody spending their Tuesday night watching, and we'll talk to everybody next week. See ya!